I'm very excited to host my first interview where I'm talking to Web3 personalities. And of course, there's no one better than Luke Barikowski. Is that your name something where people often mispronounce it or butcher it, or is it something that
Yeah,
only happens to
it's
me?
oh no, it's tough. Dude, it also you can't imagine how long it took me as a 5-year-old to learn how to spell it.
Yeah.
It took me like I think my mom made a song for me to sing to like spell out the last name. But yeah, it's a mouthful for sure.
And do you have some Polish heritage, or how is your past?
Yeah. I feel
Yeah.
like if I was like raised with any heritage, it was Polish. But yeah, we just like celebrated Polish stuff on Christmas, ate punchki, all of that fun stuff.
Okay. And um, one thing you're known for is one of your catchphrases, which is "get good." So I wanted to ask you the first question: were you actually good at any games? What's your games that you're really good at, or is it just like a slogan with nothing behind?
Yeah, I mean the games I played most were RuneScape and like survival Minecraft servers. I feel like I was good at those. I liked games that had economy in them. Um, yeah, I have always been pretty terrible at first person shooters. Even though like that's what all my friends played growing up. So if I wanted to hang out with my friends online, I would basically have to go play like Modern Warfare 2, Black Ops, Halo Reach. Um, I feel like if I got good at one thing in Black Ops, I just like to have fun with it. I would do ballistic knife only when I was playing Black Ops, and I actually got pretty good at it. I feel like my KD was actually positive with ballistic knives and almost nothing else. Um, but yeah, spent a lot of time in Minecraft servers where it's like you can be good, but like how do you know if you're good? I
Yeah.
had the most stuff.
And
My
do you still remember the first game you ever played
yeah, Pokemon Red.
on
I got
Game
a
Boy?
yeah, I got a Game Boy Color given to me with Pokemon Red with it. I was like probably like 6 or 7, like still like kind of didn't know how to play video games, but I brute forced my way through that game. Like I remember, I think I spent like a month in like one of the dungeons in Pokemon Red. You needed Flash in that dungeon, and as a 6-year-old, I didn't even know Flash existed inside of the game. So I did the entire dungeon blind without any guide. It literally took me like a month or two as a 6-year-old. I remember that.
Yeah, back then I also remember it was like really hard to get info on how to solve games and play them. You didn't have the internet. You had to go to stores and buy like cheat books where they basically were either giving you some cheat codes or solved the whole story for you. But yeah, those were different times. Definitely also exciting. I kind of liked the charm of having to figure out everything by yourself. But that's also the cool thing about the Pixels event. I feel like you often come into this blind, and if you're one of the first to solve or find like some loopholes, it can be very lucrative.
We've been talking about that a lot, and we actually think that's kind of what Play to Earn actually is. Like the fun of Play to Earn is figuring out the puzzle of how to earn. So that's why we kind of like the idea of meta shifting a lot now and doing it more often because that's actually kind of the game. Like once you're in that optimized state of earning, yeah, that's cool. Like I guess people like earning, but the gameplay starts when you're figuring out like what is the right setup, like how do I figure out how to like maximize the potential. And that's like normally anytime we do a major update, like a week or two for players where they're having like all that fun and excitement. So yeah, we've been thinking about that a lot. Like
Okay.
that's the game, the puzzle of
Yeah.
like figuring things out.
Yeah, that's for me also a very exciting aspect about Web3 gaming. So you just mentioned a week or two. Also, one thing you're known for is 2 to 4 weeks. How do you feel about that meme? Is it something that like bothers you, or can you laugh about yourself in that way a bit as well? Or
Oh yeah, no, I'm not so bothered by it. I mean, yeah, the big thing is, I mean, how that came about is basically companies operate these things called sprints, right? So sprints are normally 2 weeks long. Essentially, what you do is you decide the amount of work that you're going to do in the sprint. You try to commit to it, and yeah, when I was bringing up 2 to 4 weeks slots, like, okay, we have this plan. We've like done all the work around planning. Like this is supposed to be like done in the next sprint. This really should go out. Turns out we were getting pretty bad at sprint planning. When you're running a company, you go through different stages of company building, right? And at some points we were pretty good at the planning side of things when it came to sprint planning. Is like it's pretty obvious to Pixels players that we were struggling at that a little bit, right? And um, yeah, basically that was like an area of company building I just needed to
Yeah.
fix, right? So that was an issue. We were just going over estimates a good amount. And yeah, things just like change a little bit when you move to different stages of company building. It was way easier. What I'll say is it was way easier to get stuff out quicker when there was like 10,000 players versus, when we had hundreds of thousands of players, it's a little bit more intimidating to go and push
Mm.
change updates so quickly. So that's the thing that we're trying to get better at, like basically bringing that speed down. And then hopefully operationally, I figured out how we can get better estimates around this. We brought some new talent onto the team to help us like get this together, basically. Because yeah, it was a little frustrating on my end too. Like I legitimately every time I say 2 to 4 weeks, like team has talked about it, we discussed it, we commit to it.
Yeah.
Then something happens where it moves off, and then I get memes.
Mm.
So yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, if you're a founder or a CEO or a leader of something, like all that stuff comes back to you. So yeah, us missing timelines, it's like due to me not setting the company up in the right
Yeah.
way. But yeah, I think we're in a better spot now. And I'm really, really excited for 2025. We just upskilled the talent in the team by a ton. Um, yeah, I'm pretty optimistic about next next year.
Yeah, I really like how you handle things, especially when it comes to building in public. I think you have from my perspective, a very robust mindset. So can you maybe elaborate a bit on where your philosophy comes from, approaching like your work and like how you do handle with like dealing with stress and trying to get everything done.
Yeah, so it's interesting because for a little bit of my life, I thought I was completely immune to stress. Um, and I also thought I was like completely immune to like anxiety. Like I just thought like, oh, I'm different. It doesn't affect me at all. But what that kind of means is actually like my baseline is really low compared to other people. And I think that is a thing. Like I think some people just do have a like very low baseline of anxiety and stress. So if you put me in a normal situation, like normal day-to-day life, not company building, I have like no worries or issues. Um, I'm a chill guy.
Yeah,
Some of the
love the
circumstances,
meme.
there's something inherent about that. But then also when I think about this kind of stuff, right? Um, you have to connect what you're doing to some other kind of purpose, right? And for a lot of people, what they realize is their goal is just making money, and just like financial gain. That's not going to drive them super far. This is a really stressful position to be in. Like running any company, but running a Web3 company in particular, it's not like other industries. Like I have a lot of friends who are building startups. I would say it's a lot of my social circle. It's not necessarily Web3 even, but it's more in like Silicon Valley startup culture. And yeah, sometimes like I just casually describe some of the problems that we face in crypto, like, oh, yeah, my friend got debanked, or oh yeah, the entire industry just crashed after FTX, like this kind of stuff. And yeah, it's just not comparable to some other stuff. There's just more black swan events and stuff that gets thrown at you in this industry. So yeah, the ability to handle stress and stay calm and make good decisions is probably the most important quality in a leadership position here. And the ability to kind of put yourself out of the way, put your ego out of the way, and really think about the people that matter when you're building. So that's team, that's users, and that's like stakeholders, right? So it feels a lot better if I'm a little stressed, but I know that stress I'm bringing on like helps make these people who I care about a lot better, right? And Yeah, it's basically I'm in a stage of my life right now where I'm not optimizing for my own personal happiness. I fell in love with Stoicism for a long time, and a lot of philosophies kind of along those lines. And I think that's kind of a key point that a lot of those bring up, where a leader, somebody in like a position of power, somebody who has like ability, basically, like there's kind of like a moral obligation to go out and do good, do right, and make a positive change in the world, and to kind of put the self second, third, fourth, even. And yeah, I think that trait drives a lot of success when you're building a company. It's interesting because I feel like the people who get the greediest, like sometimes you'll see them win. And it's a little frustrating. Like nobody ever wants to see that. But I think if you're optimizing for like your own chances of success, it's crazy. I think you're gonna have a better like personal chance of success if you don't put yourself first and you put the needs of other first. So it's a lot easier to take on some stress when you're like, okay, I'm not doing this for me. Like it's my mission to go out and like do this thing I said I was gonna do, and I need to complete it. And yeah, it's not the best feeling. It's uncomfortable, but why not be a little uncomfortable? Why not do some hard things right now? That's kind of the mindset.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks for the great answer. I really liked it, and I can definitely see like the stoicism, like in how you handle things. So that's great to know. And yeah, before we jump into Pixels, I would like to know what did you actually do before Pixels, and how did it prepare you for basically making Pixels so successful?
Yeah, I was a software engineer before I started Pixels, but I started coding really young when I was 12 years old. So I basically left high school and I did this all self-study on my own. I was just really interested in it for some reason. I like the fact that I could just kind of build anything. And I started making some games at that time too. But I left high school with basically like full software engineering capabilities. I had job offers when I was 19 to go full time and work for companies with like a six-figure salary. It was pretty nuts. But yeah, I ended up studying, staying in school. I'm glad I did that. I came out with a degree in computer science and econ. And then I went to go work at a company in the Bay Area doing software engineering. And it's interesting because like I always kind of knew that I wanted to go out and build something of my own. I don't actually fit well in a 9 to 5 job or environment. It just does not work. Like it's crazy. Sometimes the driving motivating factor behind making sure Pixels works out is I can't go back to a 9 to 5 job.
Yeah.
It just wouldn't work for me. I work way harder than I would in a 9 to 5 right now.
I,
Um,
I think that
but
goes for many Web3 people, right? Like we're kind of like the not really misfits, but kind of those that don't like the traditional systems. Like when it comes to banking, but also like working, remote work and so on. So yeah.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, I feel like those experiences like really prepped me for this. Like I felt like I was a 10x engineer, where I felt like at the point when I started Pixels and started building out like initial MVP, like there was nothing I couldn't build. I built the initial MVP of Pixels full stack by myself. That was all the crazy stuff with DevOps, um, the cloud architecture, like all of the like pretty novel stuff that we were doing with like we were doing like video streaming stuff at the time.
Hmm.
And yeah, it's not super common to find somebody who can do all of that skill set. Basically, like if you're a software engineer, like at a big company, you might only use a specific front end framework and be really narrowed in it, or you might be like much better on like server optimization code side. I was always really good at being a generalist and knowing like full stack of how to build something. That was my biggest interest, and that helped a ton in the early stages of building Pixels. Like being a technical founder is a huge advantage compared to other people, and it's a little understated. And even now, I'm less involved technically than I was. My team's great now, but I'm still pretty hands-on with certain areas. Like I'm leading, like managing like a lot of product around data science, right? And that includes all of the like decision making on the top level around things like data ingestion or like different strategies there. And if you can't understand the tech, you can never go and build the interesting stuff that you want to go build. So yeah, it's interesting because you don't need to be technical to go out and build a company or a tech company even, but it's going to take you way longer. It's going to be way more expensive. You're going to be influenced in negative ways. Like here's a good example. Engineers love them. Sometimes they don't want to build stuff, or they always like to give like an excuse of why something takes a little bit longer. Like if you're working with an engineer and they don't really seem like bought into a feature, or they're like do this, or they're like silently protesting, what they'll tell you is like, this feature is going to take me 6 months.
It doesn't work.
Yeah, and if you're not technical, you're like, oh shoot, like that's all I can do.
Yeah, yeah,
You can like see through that, um, and being able to make sure that you can build things the right way, quickly, at the right price. Like you can only do that if you've done it and know the technical background. And then the econ's been super helpful too with all of this. I feel like the econ degree, I got it just, I thought it was gonna be useless. I just really liked econ, but that actually ended up being very good founder market fit here. Um, I feel like I use my econ brain like every single day at Pixels, and it's fun. That's
yeah.
also the most like enjoyable work that I do. But yeah, it's interesting because my original job as a software engineer didn't prep me at all to go out and build a company. Um, I mostly just used that time to kind of save up some money, build up some skills outside of work, and then like get to being an entrepreneur as quick as possible. That was kind of the intention behind it.
Yeah. So you're basically a man of many hats as a CEO. But could you maybe say, is there some where you have to put in most of your focus? Also, like, how involved are you in the gameplay side? Um, or are there any areas where you're not really involved in? Like, how much of the space do you cover in the company, in the different departments?
Yeah, what I'll say is I think it's really important for a CEO to maintain full context of a company for as long as possible. At a certain stage and size, it maybe gets a little too hard. Then you have to get it from direct reports, who get it from their direct reports. But that's like 200-person company, right? Pixels is about 30 right now, and that is not an excuse for me to not have context in other areas. Basically, if I'm missing context in an area like game design or like where the economy's at, it's kind of just me being not lazy, but just like not as on top of it as I should be. It's hard to stay so dialed in for so long, right? Like I've been a full-time entrepreneur for like 5 years now. And sometimes just like anybody, you go through months where you're really on top of things and like months where you're not as on top of things, right? When I'll say when I'm not as on top of things, it's when I'm starting to lose a little bit of touch in a certain area and I'm not as like filled in on context and some of the decision making. So yeah, I try to stay full stack if I can, right? And obviously that doesn't mean I don't trust people on the team to go out and do their jobs, but also sometimes, even if we have like a really good person on the team who knows their stuff, because what we're doing here is so there's a lot of new stuff, and it touches so many different areas, right? Like our stuff touches like economics and tokenomics, like novel game design, really hard new tech that no one's built before, and no one has the context of all three of those areas in the way that I do, right? So for example, like our dev team, they know their tech, they know how to build stuff, they're amazing at it, but sometimes they don't always know like the nuances of game design, and they maybe didn't have the conversation that they needed to. Like that's kind of my job to help fill in some of that context bridging and like combine those two areas to make sure that they work together well. And then same thing with tokens too. Like on the team, I'm still the one that's um, coming with the most context on like how tokens work. Um, I have my own opinions and like my own thoughts on tokens. Also, like I've become pretty opinionated, and yeah, that's a lot of where I'm helping bridge the gap too. Of like, no, this is how market might respond to this. This is what we're seeing. This is what this team did that worked and didn't work. Um, yeah, all of that kind of stuff too. So Yeah, I don't know if that helps
So you're
answer that.
basically holding everything together, and you're like the piece in between, also
Yeah,
actually.
it's kind of like a debate in the startup scene right now. It's called founder mode.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen any of that, but yeah, that's the key idea. Like a founder really should be hands-on in the early stages. And it's funny because sometimes like certain people on the team don't like that even. They're like,
Mm,
no, you got to trust him. But it's it's hard because yeah, founder is the only one that has
yeah.
full context and full understanding of the vision.
Just from my own observation, I think it's really hard to get to that next level where you kind of delegate more and take a step back from that position. But I guess you also still have some time to, figure that out with pixel scaling. Um, but yeah, maybe to the next question, going back to pixels, what was your idea behind getting pixels started? What was yeah, how did everything come into place?
Yeah, I was building a different company before Pixels, and we actually turned that company into Pixels. So yeah, the first thing I was doing was virtual spaces and events. Like I was building a metaverse platform in Web 2. Um, yeah, if you guys know the product gather.town, it was kind of big during COVID. I'm not sure how well it's doing now, but basically it was kind of like Pokemon meets Zoom,
Yeah.
where you could walk around inside of this virtual world. If you got close to people, it would start a video chat, and if you walked too far away, it would start a video chat with somebody else. It was a cool product, but not a really good business. Basically, a really hard product to build. Like that product is stupidly difficult to go out and make. And that's kind of the stuff that I like to go and build. Like I like to build really hard things because I feel like I'm the one that can do it. No one else can.
Yeah.
We still have like a big leg up on them to do it first. But then, yeah, the thing that moved me into Web3 was basically that business was not working at all. I had raised like a little bit of funding around it, about like I say a little bit, and your startups mess up your mind with money sometimes. I raised like $200,000. A lot of money, also not a lot of money to go out and build a tech company.
Mm.
But yeah, I built the entire product on that amount of money. And like even like the base of what Pixels was, which if you know tech and startups, it's actually like quite impressive. It took a while too. I think we stretched that money out for like a year and a half, 2 years. Um, and yeah, basically we were coming to a point where like I thought the startup was dying for sure. This is crazy. This is a true story. At one point, we had like a month of money left, and it was pretty clear to me that this wasn't going anywhere. I was like, okay, I had a good run. I'm like pretty happy with the effort I put in and tried. Now it's time for my next thing. I like started emailing a bunch of different farms. I emailed a potato farm, and we basically worked out this agreement where I could go and like live on the potato farm. I was literally driving on my way to Idaho. This is like completely true. And then I got a call when I was in Colorado after I'd been driving for like 20 hours, that we got like a little bit more funding for Pixels, and that I had to be in San Francisco the next day in order to get it. So I literally like just kept driving from where I was, like just passed through Idaho and like went straight to San Francisco, and like kept building a bit. But then like 2 or 3 months later, similar situation where it was still kind of clear that things weren't really working out. Um, and yeah, I had to give a demo day at a startup accelerator. I gave that demo, and during the demo, I basically said, hey, nothing about this old product is working at all. I have no idea what I'm going to be doing next. I have like a month of money left still. I think I'm just gonna go and like lock myself in a cabin for a month and try some things out, and maybe I'll come out with something. And then during that month, I sat down and I made a new business every single day. I would like start from scratch. I would make a website. I would run some ads. I would send it to people acting like it's real. And yeah, I literally went through almost like 30 ideas during that month span. And one of those ideas was like a Web3 game, basically.
Yeah.
Because it was when Axie Infinity was coming up. I was really interested in what Axie Infinity was doing because to me, that was the first time that like the use case of crypto made sense to me in the context of a game. I studied economics. All my economics professors really hated crypto. And yeah, I just was kind of turned off by it for a little bit. It just didn't really make sense when it came to use case to me. But gaming made it completely click. It's like, oh, yeah, it totally makes sense. Games are their own economies. So it makes sense to have its own currency for that. And yeah, there is some interesting stuff that can happen when you do that. And clearly, Axie Infinity has seen like something work there, even though I was a little skeptical of like the full stuff going on. I thought it was too interesting to ignore.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was also this concept of virtual nation building at the time too. That was really popular. I thought that was the coolest thing. I haven't heard that term in so long, like probably since then. But I thought it was really cool. So yeah, out of all those ideas I tried that month, that Web3 thing actually generated like a little bit of Twitter interest. And when you're building something, you would only know this if you're building. Like you can build something and put so much time and effort into it and spend like a year doing it and get no reception from the public. Like sometimes people just won't care about what you're doing in the first stages. And a lot of the process of like building something great is honestly removing a lot of your opinions out of what you think is going to work and what won't work, and then responding to how people react. Because product market fit, there's two things. It's building the right product. It's also finding the right market. And if you're building a product, that's great. Good for you. But if there's no market for it, then that's a big issue. So a lot of the advice that I was given from like a mentor I really respect in that stage of my life was, dude, clearly you can build product, but like the market stuff is the most important to you. Like just go find a good market first. And yeah, you made some good points on like marketing also. That was kind of paradigm shifting for me. He viewed marketing as not trying to like sell something to somebody. Like marketing is not, I think you should buy this, here's why. Marketing is there's a group of people who want what you have out there already. Um, you just need to get in front of them. And yeah, basically when I demoed this Web3 thing, which became Pixels, that was the first time I had a group of people super excited about what I was doing and sharing with others, being like, oh, this is so sick. This is so cool. And when you get to that excitement around something that you create, like you kind of know
Yeah.
it's a different feeling than the other feeling.
So it was basically this positive feedback loop that you got from like sharing stuff on Twitter, and you actually could feel there's some traction behind it, and you kept going. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then yeah, I was able to basically use some of that momentum
Yeah.
to raise like an entire round of funding. Like I
Okay.
went from that demo moment
Wow.
to raising a pre-seed round in like a month and a half.
And you were basically a one-man company at that stage, or no?
Yeah, there was one other friend helping me at the
Yeah.
time, so it was two of us, and that was
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is
Cool. Yeah. So you just brought up Axie, and I think a very big breaking point for you guys was the move, the migration to Ronin. Can you maybe give some background how that came into place? Like how did you get in contact? Who approached who, or like yeah, how did all of this happen? Because it was very important for Pixels.
yeah. So I don't want to like humble anybody here or like say anything like negative, but not to be negative. But basically, it's crazy how far we both have come in the last year. The perception around Ronan was very, very different a year and a half ago. So yeah, Ronan was maybe like kind of struggling to figure out what its next steps were going to be, and it needed a catalyst, right? It needed something to change a little bit about it. The thing is, like, there was so little belief in Axie and Ronin across like Web3 at the time, which I thought was so stupid because I saw with my own eyes the like come up that Axie had and like the excitement around it, the amount of revenue it generated at Peak Bull Run, and the fandom around it too. So I just knew like most of the space was completely wrong on their opinion of Axie and Ronin, and that there was something really interesting there. and clearly like they had figured stuff out before. There's no reason they can't again, and they already built a channel of distribution, which is the hardest thing to do inside of Web3. So yeah, we were on Polygon at the time, and I'm not gonna lie, I don't talk about this too much because I don't think it's ever worth saying anything negative about anybody you work with, but we definitely were not their priority, is what I'll say. Um, there was like a lot of the times when marketing material would get out about games on Polygon. We had the most daily active addresses and users on their network out of any DApp actually. And we would never even get included in their like marketing material. They would go and market like tons of other games. I could barely get in touch with the team. It was clear they just
Yeah.
didn't really have conviction in us, or really like what we were doing. So yeah, it's never good to work with a partner so closely. And at the time, like a chain is a big deal. And it's maybe becoming a little bit different now, but I still think it's important. Um, but yeah, it's never good to be like working in a partnership with somebody who doesn't actually believe in what you're doing, right? So the big thing when I was like looking to move somewhere else was like I need to have a partner who has like a shared belief, shared values, and thinks what we're doing is interesting, and is also like incentively has the incentive alignment to like help us grow with them, right? So like all the stuff really lined up with Ronin on that regard. Um, it's interesting because when we moved to Ronin, one, like they were not open. They were not even letting other people on originally when I reached out, right? Basically, I follow Jiho, and um, I saw what he was doing with Ronin. Like I saw that they were like maybe rumbling, like, oh, maybe we're gonna like have more games on Ronin eventually. But they weren't like doing it at the time. And they weren't like even I don't even think they were completely sure if that was gonna be the direction they go in and like how they were gonna do it. Right. But yeah, I started reaching out to him, being like, hey, I feel like if you're gonna open up Ronin, or like let some other games on it, like it would be really interesting if we go there. Like yeah, they hadn't even like really hinted towards anything else like that coming. I just like I could sense that one, it would be like something they kind of wanted to do, but they were like maybe weren't publicly saying it yet. And two, that would be really mutually beneficial. So yeah, I was DMing him a little bit on Twitter, and then we ended up meeting up in Japan at um, a crypto conference there, IBS Kyoto, and yeah, it just was pretty clear that we had a lot of similar values, like ways that we view the space. Like that's pretty rare to meet other teams that you have that value alignment with, and to me, that's actually probably the biggest indicator of like a successful partnership or like team that you want to work with. It's like, do you care about the same stuff? Are you like kind of morally and ethically aligned? Do you have the same work ethic? Um, do you like have the same approach to building, like those things? And that's actually kind of how we looked at the Pixel Dungeon team
Yeah.
when we were evaluating them too. But yeah, all those things lined up. I think it was a pretty clear mutual after that meeting that there was something potentially interesting there. Deal took like a couple months to get in and get done, but it was like one of those things also where neither of us really knew how well it was going to go. Um, I had what I'll say is financially, I had much better offers from other chains, but that was never what it was about for me. Like I didn't care about the money, even though we kind of
Yeah.
needed it at the time. I cared more about making sure that we were with the right people. And yeah, the Ronin team were definitely the right people. What I can like really confidently say is like out of all the teams, the people I have met and know in Web3, like that team cares so much. They're all like very fundamentally good people that have really strong integrity. And yeah, it's just been a pleasure to work with them. And I'm very thankful for it.
Yeah. So it's kind of you could say it was yet another product market fit that you kind of saw, and then obviously um, everything turned out super well. Uh, I wanted to know, um, of course, as a game, you need to be very also looking into what the community wants. What's the best way you are gathering feedback and like how do you keep track of the community sentiment on the various channels?
Yeah, one thing. So I still lurk in Discord. One thing that I was really good at that I'm not as good at now, just because it's crazy. The amount of work that I do it's different now than it was a year ago. I manage more people, and there's more decisions to make. But I used to be in the Discord all the time. That's one thing that I'm missing a lot, and I think it's also kind of hurting the community in certain ways too. I've been trying to figure out how I can basically still have that feeling with people like landowners and the other parts of the community without having to be like in Discord 24/7. The AMAs are good for that stuff, right? Like we do that with the player base. They feel listened to, even if sometimes it takes us a little bit of time to get out updates. Believe me, like see all that stuff. I'm telling the team, guys, get freaking pet care in the task board. What are we doing? I'm talking about that stuff all the time with them. And then I have to go and like be bad guy sometimes. I feel like it's taking us a little bit longer than we think. But I listen to all that stuff. I look at everything said about us on Twitter. I have a few like different tools to do that. Like literally every single thing if you post it on Pixels or post on Twitter, like I'm going to see it. I'm in Discord lurking a lot. And I think what we want to start doing is we're gonna see how it goes. I want to start doing like things like a landowner AMA and some other things too. I've noticed like landowner Discord is getting sentiment's not been great there in the last little bit, right? And that used to be a place where I was active all the time,
Yeah.
right? So even when things were a little bit harder, like it's crazy. We went through a bear market together, and it was good. Like there were some frustrated people every now and then in the bear market, but we like went through the whole bear market. We came up and like had this amazing rise,
Yeah.
right? And yeah, we've all been through a lot together. So it's interesting is like the sentiment is maybe it might be worse now than it was like peak bear, which is kind of crazy. But I think part of that is because I was really active in the Discord peak bear, and I'm not as in touch. So I think that access to a founder, that's something that the Axie team is amazing at. Also, is super important. I haven't been as good at that with certain segments, and yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to bring that back. Also in this new schedule and like
Yeah.
with the responsibilities I have. So yeah, I mean, if you have any ideas, I feel like the landowner AMA is going to be something that's good.
That's very interesting for sure. Yeah. And I can definitely see. I think you have like 20,000 messages on the Discord server, if I remember correctly when I checked. But yeah, like it's also hard to. There's so many different personas and groups of users inside Pixel, so they all have their special needs, and I definitely get it. But yeah, overall, how happy are you with the current state of Pixels? Chapter 2.5 was kind of like your approach to kind of fix some things that maybe didn't go so well in chapter 2. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I think we're still facing some of the debt from chapter two. Chapter two, there were some things that went well about it. I also, yeah, I think I've done a pretty good analysis in my own mind of like what went wrong with it too. I think basically the key thing is we after the token launch, one getting a token, the run that we had from September to token launch was nuts. Uh, Last year, right? Like we moved the Ronin, and then nonstop went from like 1,000 DAU, 10,000 DAU maybe to like a million in like 7 or 8 months. So we didn't really have time to focus on like some of the bigger things. And chapter two kind of one got like less focused on just to keep the game up, get the token out, do all of that stuff. And then two, like some of the company building side got left behind too. So the team didn't increase in size from that September time to like June,
Yeah.
basically, like significantly after TGE, like 4 to 5 months after, like basically after chapter two launched when I started hiring more, for like a couple different reasons on the back end. But yeah, basically, I think some of the issue with chapter two is like we just didn't have the right talent that we needed. And yeah, that was a mistake I learned pretty quickly. Like, shoot, okay, we actually do need to hire some people here to come help us. The team that we built to get Pixels to where it got, amazing, right? Like I'm so proud of the team that we had to get there. Like we had, to be honest, a lot of us had no idea what we were doing. We brute forced our way to like becoming one of the biggest games in Web3. Like all the chapter one balance that we did, it felt pretty good to a lot of users. That's not because we knew what we were doing. It's because we updated every single day based on feedback to get it into the perfect spot, right? And that kind of worked. That actually is not really sustainable in the long run either. Like, we finally have game economists, all this kind of stuff. We thought we could get chapter two out in the same way, basically, and that was maybe a wrong assumption. So some of the things with chapter two, if we had maybe had the same approach of like being able to get stuff out as quick as possible, like daily updates could have worked. But also basically I just switched the approach where it's like, no, we have to do things with like the right people who know what they're doing. We're going to bring in the Web2 people that know how to balance games. Like we shouldn't be doing anything novel or crazy here. Like we should just bring on good talent, who knows what they're doing, and like do things the right way this time. So that's kind of been the idea. Like chapter 2.5, when we get it out, like all of this is done the right way. And hopefully that'll go better. So my goal for Pixels in 2025 is, I think we're at like, good to okay level when it comes to game. If you were to show Pixels to like somebody who knows nothing about Web3 and that like maybe actively dislikes Web3, I don't think their first impression is going to be, this is an amazing game, right? I think they might say that about a game like Moonfrost. I think Moonfrost to like an outsider looks like an amazing game. I don't know what the core mechanics look like, or like, any of the earn stuff. But yeah, basically I want to get us up to parity with like, a game like that, right? Where an outsider to
The
crypto,
packaging, basically. Yeah.
yeah, the packaging, I think that's the big thing. Because it's interesting, like the core gameplay of Pixels when you get further through,
It's kind of
right now,
hidden, right? When
yeah,
once
it's
you
a little,
get
it's a
the
little
ads.
broken until we get the chapter 2.5 updates out. But there is actually like some pretty interesting end gameplay.
Yeah.
One, it takes a long time for a player to get to. Two, we need to like get some more content out because it's kind of stalled. But yeah, there's some cool stuff there that's going to be really easy to get that back to the level that we want. I actually think that is good gameplay. The early middle game is not good, so when you go show it to a new player, it just takes a lot of time to get the coins you need to get. We can package it a bit better. We can get some like narratives, some cutscenes in, do the onboarding
Mhm.
experience that makes more sense. So yeah, that's going to kind of be the plan for 2025. Like get the game into a spot where it's super shareable. You don't need to be like, oh, this game is cool because it has crypto in it. It's just like a cool game and it has crypto in it.
Yeah.
Um, and then we can start to really juice some of the growth too. So we're going to start to bringing back some of the growth incentives, like some of the same ways that we grew in Play to Airdrop. We can start to bring back. So yeah, I'm hoping we'll hit 1 million DAU again in like probably like Q1 or Q2 2025. That would be the goal. Depends on when we can get some of this polish featured in. And then, yeah, we'll see what happens on the acquisition side too, because that's always a way to accelerate that as well. Yeah, I've been talking about that for so long. It's kind of cool. I think people see it a little bit more now that we got this Pixel Dungeon game out.
Yeah. What's your thoughts on the state of guilds and what role um, in your mind should they play within Pixels? So, um, yeah, what's the purpose for you um, when it comes to the future of guilds?
Yeah, so guilds, I think, like I'm the one that pushed that feature. I think they're so cool because we saw a ton of guilds forming inside of Pixels, just naturally. Basically, we want to have a game mechanic that integrated that. I really like the idea of guild treasuries and having guilds manage a treasury and share it with users and like decide how they do it. I think that's like great and interesting gameplay. And there's something quite interesting with allowing and facilitating that. I think guilds at the beginning with chapter two were pretty useful, and in chapter one also when they were gating scarce industries. A lot of the issues with landing guilds is really just like the chapter two changes that didn't go well, basically, and messed up game economy and balance. Essentially, the fact that there's no resource scarcity. So chapter 2.5, when we finally roll these updates out, it's going to bring this back, and I think the goal is like, it's going to make land and guilds a lot more useful in the core gameplay. Yeah, we hope Guild Wars is something that's somewhat interesting to these users. What I'll say is Guild Wars, one, there's pretty significant earnings going to guilds through that right now. I haven't checked on it this week either to see if stats are up, but maybe I'll pull that up right now. But it's been an interesting mechanic. I'm actually curious to interview you back. How do you think Guild Wars is going, and is that leading to better guild utility and reception?
Yeah, I think it kind of, right now, from my observation, it kind of separates the very dedicated guilds from the more casual ones. Especially, I think, because it's a longer season. Um, some, like, there's the players that check out new stuff and they play it a little bit, and then there's like the guys that want to go super hard, super competitive, and those are the ones that basically don't miss a single session and they go through 3 months, play every week. So it kind of um, is more interesting to one section of guilds. That's what I can observe. But what I can also see is, for my guild, which is very competitive, it has a very positive community building bonding effect. Basically, we're playing every session with we're in the tier 3 bracket, and we have like 60 out of 65 members like every single time online, sitting in voice chats with a Filipino community, a Spanish community, English speaking community, and basically like everyone is working together. And it definitely, I can see it on my Discord server, brings on so much more activity. So it's like everybody's online, like even outside of the guild wars. I can definitely say that competing together has a very strong community building and bonding effect.
Nice. Yeah, no, there's something. The mechanic I think is good, and like the idea of rewarding guilds for gameplay that they do together. I think what I'm wondering is like, is this actual game mechanic the one to do this around? So here's an interesting thought experiment. And I'm not saying that we're going to do this, um, but yeah, Guild Wars could be something that's structured around like other stuff in the ecosystem also. Like
Yeah.
it could just be a framework for like other participation. Like we maybe could run it through a leaderboard in Pixel Dungeons, for example, and have
100%.
tournaments.
Yeah, what I really like is the collaborative aspect that guilds bring. That basically you're not like a lone warrior in the Web3 gaming space. It's more like a team, a family, a group, whatever. It's like people working together, which uh, kind of keeps you more in the system also involved, because like you have these social interactions and people that you're basically talking to also all the time. But yeah, speaking about like you also mentioned the dungeons, um, I would actually like to know, what do you think is more important for the future, um, let's say, of Pixels, right? Is it the Pixels ecosystem, or is it the Pixels game itself? Can you maybe, or how should I frame that question? Is this something like that's gonna bring Pixels forward as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, so to me, sometimes I can't believe I'm like this now. Games are kind of math sometimes, right?
Yeah,
For Pixel's game, like the retention is really good. It's best in class actually when it comes to later retention. So it's always, if we do this right, going to be an engine of user acquisition. The core Pixels game does not have to make. I talk about net ecosystem spend a lot, right? Um, and that's kind of the goal that we're getting at. Like across the ecosystem, essentially, what we want to do is we want to have people use Pixel more than we give it out, right?
yeah,
That doesn't mean the core game of Pixels needs to be net spend though.
yeah.
So what we can do is basically use it as like a user acquisition engine for other games inside of the ecosystem, just like Pixel Dungeons, where
People
probably
like to
almost,
burn.
yeah, exactly. So like you can go earn in Pixels, and like yeah, there's like net
Yeah.
earnings in Pixels, and then net earning in like a different game in the ecosystem. So making that game, the core game, as good as possible to make sure that we keep building out that engine is like a pretty good strategy. And it's also our best shot if you're talking about like just with what we have right now, right? Like we have a lot of users who like this game a lot and they've been playing it for a long time. Like they want to see it do well and succeed. And it's hard to build up that user base, right? Like we still have hundreds of thousands of DAU. Even after a ton of bot calling, we've gotten pretty good at that now. Um, like I think our real DAU is probably like 90% of DAA now, which is we're by far best in class in Web3 at this. Like I can so confidently say that at this point. Um, at least unless like a game does full KYC, then they might be like honestly about the same. But yeah, the idea is basically like keep making pixels as good as possible. Like I think people see some of the other stuff that we're doing on the ecosystem side and they're worried that we like moved away resources and we're like not putting as much time into it. And that's actually not what happened at all.
Yeah.
Like I've built out core pixels team even bigger over the last few months, which I'm always very hesitant to do, but there's more resources on core pixels team. It's just taking longer to get these changes because chapter 2 is more broken than we thought, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. So what's interesting for me also to observe is that mm, Pixels has like very positive revenue numbers, but at the same time it kind of has the impression that it's kind of like a slightly more extraction based player base, right? Like lots of people are interested in the earnings parts, but at the same time the revenues are very strong. So kind of what's your strategy or idea to increase also the whale ratio, and why is it still working so well that Pixel is making these solid numbers on the revenue side?
Yeah, I think people left brain this a little too much, or maybe, or sorry, right brain this too much, where people are like, oh no, no one can earn in a Web3 game because it makes it unsustainable. That's not, the earnings aren't unsustainable necessarily. Um, like how it works, the economics of it in my mind is if I was building a Web2 game, I would go and spend a ton of money on advertising to get in front of users who are never going to pay me in my game, right? Only about like 2 to 5% of users monetize in Web2, but you still have to spend money to get them to play your game because you have to advertise them to them, right? So these users cost you in Web2 and they're free to play, right? I view earnings in a kind of similar way where it's just like our way to hook in a majority of the user base, right? And it's almost the same exact model as Web2. We just don't spend it on ads. Instead, we just kind of cut the middleman out and distribute some of that user acquisition budget that we have to users. Makes a lot of sense,
Yeah.
right? But yeah, the core thing is basically like we need to build out better gameplay and mechanics that give you the opportunity to use Pixel if you want. And we didn't have any of that at the very beginning, right? Like, you know, we basically have to take some more lessons from free to play and bring them into the game, which is like, you know, it's funny because some people don't like that. Some people like get why it needs to happen. But yeah, that's the idea. Just basically bringing more free to play monetization mechanics. The coin purchasing one was a good example.
Yeah, that
Uh,
was
yeah, well,
worked really well. And yeah, with all the talks about the ecosystem, how would a Pixels chain come into play there? Like, what would be the positive things, and do you think it's the right move, maybe even next year, to try to set it up?
yeah, so what I'll say is from a revenue perspective, chains don't make as much revenue as people think. Pixels makes almost as much revenue as base. I think base does like 2 or 3 million a month in revenue. Pixels does about like 2, 2.5. That's pretty crazy, right?
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, I think chains are like wildly mispriced in a lot of cases, unless you have something really sticky behind it. But yeah, because of that, when Ronin goes permissionless, I'm not as um, like gung ho on getting a chain out as quick as possible. There's something about narrative that might be interesting where if market does misprice chains, then maybe we should just do it because why not take advantage of that? But it doesn't really add to our economics at all. Like it wouldn't be burning more pixel. And if we can basically get most of the benefit that we want out of our own chain with a permissionless Ronin, then that might make sense. The thing where our own chain would make sense is like basically if Ronin gets too congested and we want to separate that a little bit from Ronin. Um, or yeah, this won't happen because we're like I'm actually so happy that we're on Ronin, but um, yeah, there is like an interesting opportunity to like go and like do our own marketplaces or other things like that. Like if we really cared about capturing like some of those fees around like marketplace trading, or if we want a marketplace that natively use their token, here's like a technical detail that you would like not really think about that might have an effect on tokenomics. Like for example, in Mavis Marketplace, right now you can purchase like farmland or like pixel pets. You purchase it in Ronin. And now I think there is an option to purchase a pixel, but it works like in a way that's not super beneficial. But basically, like if you're a pixels player, you have a bunch of pixel balance, right? Like what you'd have to do is you'd have to go and like swap your pixel, basically sell your pixel to go and buy a pixel asset.
Yeah.
That's where like, the one like little misalignment is. And yeah, it kind of puts sell pressure on our own token when people are purchasing our own assets. It's a little weird, right? So there's like things like that where if I really cared about that, I actually don't because it's not needle moving at all. Then maybe it would make sense to have like our own marketplace in their chain to make sure that Pixels is capturing more of the revenue. But yeah, at the end of the day, the economics don't actually work out favorably where it makes sense for me to put time, effort, and energy in there. The only thing that chain gets us if there's Ronin permissionless or permissionless Ronin is like a headline in the short run, right? So yeah, we could do it. Honestly, it's kind of crazy. It's so quick to spin up a chain now. If we wanted to, I could pull a trigger and get it up in like 2 weeks. It just doesn't make sense. And it's not even like an exclusivity thing. It's not like there's no reason I can't do this right now. Basically, it just doesn't really make sense economically or from like a strategy perspective right now.
Okay, I got it. So basically, if there's actually something that brings benefits, then it might be useful. But yeah, there's not really a big needle moving thing behind it. Jumping back to the in-game economies, I actually had a question that I'm very interested to hear your thoughts on. There's certain items priced in a fixed pixel price, and then there's certain items where the price is kind of balanced around the dollar price, right? For example, with VIP, right, it adjusts, but stuff like spec upgrades or I think even like some flowers or some cosmetics, like there's sometimes like just always this fixed price. What is the reasoning behind this? How do you choose whether it's to go this way or that way? Because with coin spending, right, you have the dollar fixed price. I think it's $5 for million.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I think those things that aren't in the variable pricing are just things that we don't see people purchase ever. Um, spec upgrades a little bit. Maybe let me see if I can get the number of spec upgrades purchased. Um, here's a good example of like revenue in the last. Let's go 30 days. So out of our revenue in the last 30 days, 3 million pixel was through VIP coupons, and then three like 4 million was through coin coupons. And then the spec upgrades totaled up to about like 200,000 pixel, right? Um, the flowers, yeah, like all the other stuff maybe totals up to like 10,000 pixel, right? So like
Okay.
basically, no one's buying the other stuff, is what I can say.
Yeah.
So that's just we haven't even done that. So what we see when we put anything in the stores for Pixel, especially on the big purchases, is the demand fluctuates based on exchange, right? So like people price things in dollars no matter what. Like you probably
Yeah.
do that when you're going to spend Pixel, right? You're like, okay, this is like 100 Pixel, but like I'm spending $20. Like
Yeah.
that's how you
Makes
decide
sense.
if it feels good or not. So yeah, that's why we do that basically. Like we just noticed that with VIP.
What makes
People
sense for the customer, basically, in the end. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Um, and yeah, people always ask a lot, like, Luke, can you do this for me? Change that. But I want to know what can the Pixels community do for you? What's for you the ideal Pixels community member or player? Um, what would you like? What makes you happy when you see in the Pixels community?
I cannot believe that we have a tool as good as Pixel Stop Tips that's community made. Like that kind of stuff is crazy to me.
Yeah.
And so good for the ecosystem. So yeah, I feel like if more community members made things like that would be awesome. If more community members, like, if any community member has an interesting idea for like something they want to go build too, we have a developer grant program now. Um, like I love that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
Community built tooling, games, any of that.
Yeah, that's what I also love to see. Like everyone that's in a community building, I think is a very healthy sign for also the long term, because people really care about the project. Like you don't do this with the first idea in mind to make profit, but you do this because you like the space and you want to contribute. Um, Also on that side, um, what's the plans for, I think it was called Ronin Realms. Basically the being able to build your own game within pixels. Is that still something you have on the roadmap maybe for next year? Um,
Yeah, that's what we have to figure out. Yes, hopefully, but it's basically like a dev capacity thing. So UGC is hard to manage, even though we have all that stuff ready. There's just like some internal stuff basically of why that didn't go out, even though it was basically ready. We have to. It's hard to support in the long run, but it's something that I'm probably going to be more aggressively pushing for because it's literally there. Like it's crazy. Like we've already built it out. We use all of the realms technology to build out everything inside of our game. Like it's
yeah,
there, it's in use
yeah,
every single day. I want to open it up. I'm probably gonna try to push for that a little bit harder, but I can't give a timeline on when that would be.
yeah,
I think when I think about features and prioritization, the stuff I think about is basically like what's going to move the needle most. For us, what that means is an increase in users, an increase in revenue, or maybe an increase in retention. Um, UGC flywheels are great. It's crazy. I had to really like basically put my foot down last year when we were getting out the decoration builder. Like some people internally were like, it was basically there was a lot of conflicting opinions on if this was going to be a good feature, not internally. I was like, no, we have to do it. Sorry, don't care what you say. Sometimes as like a founder CEO, you have to do that. And I think it's one of the most successful features that we've had. So I want to do more like that.
yeah.
Uh,
Just like looking on Twitter and all the community building that comes with it, individualization, like I maybe even it does more than it's shown in the numbers. But even the numbers, I think there's so many UGCs, 200, 400, like every week. So that's great to see. Yeah, maybe jumping a bit out of pixels again. What are some opportunities that you see right now in Web3 gaming that are kind of untapped, that haven't really been taken advantage of by maybe some of your competitors also in the space?
it's crazy. I dude, Web3 founders try to jump into trends way too quickly. Um, like I see a lot of people that are basically building out like a lot of features that we have, and that's great. Like go ahead and do it, I guess. Like clearly we've done some stuff that works, but there's so much room out there to go and innovate. I think people like focus on us a little bit too much. Like I think no, I know it happens because I've been told this. People are like, "Oh, we're coming in to compete with Pixels now." I'm like, "You want to like take some Pixel user base?" That's the stupidest way to view Web3 gaming in my mind. Like, it's so narrow-minded, and the founders that normally do that are not the ones who succeed. Just in general, not just in like Web3, but I think in most of startups, if you view the market in such a narrow way, you're missing the bigger picture of what there is out there. And what's out there is like $100 billion market in Web2 gaming with like tons of different types of games that most I think could work with a Web3 model. And I would love to see more experimentation with like basically bringing some other types of games into Web3 gaming, right? You don't have to go out and do land decorations and farming mechanics in all of your games, right? Like
Ba-
copying that part is
Yeah.
also not what Pixels is doing well, and I think people misunderstand that too. Like
Basically, the mission is to capture the Web2 gaming market for the people inside Web3. Yeah, I see. Yeah, sorry if I interrupted you. Did you want to
no,
continue?
no, I agree with you. Yeah, I mean, I keep telling my team this, and like I go on interviews like this, and I literally spill all of the alpha Um, and yeah, I mean, these people need to stop trying to like innovate on gameplay. I think that's the biggest mistake I see a lot of founders make right now. They're like, oh, I need to build a Web3 game and all the gameplay needs to be something, even we've done this, and it's like we shouldn't be doing this as much as we do. The gameplay does not need to be crazy innovative, right? Like if we had a game that was pretty up to par with some of the Web2 side of things, but then had like really unique earn aspects, that's a hit, to be honest. We just haven't actually seen that enough inside of Web3 gaming. So yeah, we're making more aggressive moves on that end, basically using a lot of the earnings tech that we've done to like go out and build more similar games mechanics to Web2 games and have a huge CAC advantage, like customer acquisition cost advantage with earning.
Yeah. Um, One thing I see you guys also having on the roadmap is the DAO. I've I think I've read about DAOs like almost 4 years ago, and like I've never seen it really do anything, or it's really hard to set it up and work. How would you make it work, and what's the most important? Because like they don't seem so functional in a way. What's the framework that's necessary to get the DAO working and actually do stuff?
Yeah, we're setting that up now. We actually just brought on somebody, and this is kind of their first job. Yeah, his name is Josh. You might see a bit more of him. He's the head of ecosystem at Pixels now. So yeah, his role is kind of going to be one, like helping get all the infrastructure and Rails ready for the community when they take over governance of community treasury. And the community treasury is quite significant now. There's over 50 million pixel in it. That's some serious treasury. It's second biggest in Web3 gaming compared to Axie's like 100 million treasury. But yeah, they're on another order of magnitude there. But yeah, the idea is basically like it's the community's treasury. We should probably help give them some guide rails and like almost like constitution in the way of how to manage this effectively. At the end of the day, it's not our decision, but we want to basically provide some guidance. So yeah, there's some rules that we might suggest. For example, like you probably don't want. It's probably not good for anybody in the community if like the community on day one just decided to airdrop 100% of um, the community treasury
Yeah.
to like a small subset of users, right? So there might be interesting guardrails that we could put on, being like, hey, you can only allocate like 1/12 of the treasury every single month, so it kind of vests that way, right? So there's like some protections there. That way they can use it a bit smartly and not spend it all at once. So there might be some interesting things that we can do with that.
So basically, it's just like a nation state, like with a constitution, kind of like setting these initial frames. And yeah, I think the voting mechanism is also going to be very interesting to see how you gonna handle that and what kind of concept this will be based off. Um, Another question I wanted to ask you, there was a after you guys launched your token, many other games kind of also rushed to launch their token, and there's the big discussion: centralized exchange versus decentralized exchange. What makes more sense for games and what's more successful? What's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, my take is people keep talking about onboarding the masses in the crypto and Web3, and they kind of forget that all the masses are already onboarded into finance and Coinbase, right? Like the normies are in Web.
Yeah,
So,
true.
yeah, whether you like it or not, that is actually the best path to get adoption and users and distribution. And it's still a huge advantage to be on a sex. It's really hard, obviously. And I mean, that's what I've been trying to say for a long time. Like, not every project will be able to be on one. The bar is high. Not every project deserves to be on one, to be completely honest, either. Like, I think you can see one thing I don't think we get enough credit for is um, like some of like how well our TGE went, to be honest, like all the logistics around it, like tokenomics, P2A, claim process, like post listing. Like I feel like execution, not to like toot our own horn, was like almost perfect in a lot of that. There were like a few small things that community didn't like at first, but the outcome for them was quite good. Like for example, we got a little bit of FUD on um, like airdrop amount, but like also airdrop value at peak was worth $250 million. So
Yeah.
um, yeah, I don't feel too bad about that.
Yeah.
Right. And it ended up being like a pretty good outcome for
Yeah.
all of them versus like maybe recent TGs of um, not right. So the sex stuff is really important still, in my opinion. But I will say I've been like pretty impressed by a couple recent Dex listings. Like I think Wild Forest went pretty well.
They,
Uh,
I think it 2x'd after the listing.
yeah,
Uh,
some other ones maybe didn't go as well recently too. And I mean that's the tricky thing too. Like some people are just trying to get a token out because they think that's what they should do, but they're really not ready. To be completely honest, I think a lot of people are underestimating what it actually means to do that. And the nice thing is what we had practice basically before we launched Pixel. Barry was live in game for a year and a half, like 18 months. Um, so we kind of already knew the post listing or like token management live ops also. Um, and now I'm really excited for more people to step into the arena. But like basically, I think a lot of these teams that are just doing their TGE or maybe where we were at 18 months ago when we did the original Barry TGE, Barry market cap sat at like 200K for like a year. And then I think it went up to like 2 to 3 million when we launched on Ronin, right? It was a low market cap token, but it did what we needed to like learn all the lessons that we needed to for a more successful second launch, basically.
yeah. Uh, Okay, great to hear your insights on that. I know we're already a bit over 1 hour. I'll try to keep it very short with a few brief questions, so you don't need to elaborate too deep on those. But I want to hear your thoughts on meme coins. What do you think of the meme coin space? Obviously, we're at its highs, now it's a bit down.
Yeah, I'm a terrible trader, to be honest. Like I've never been good at trading stocks. It's funny, like I'm a high risk individual, right? But I'm a paper hand when it comes to like trading or anything like that. I always lose money. I'm like never good at trading. So I always follow meme coins and stuff like that on the sidelines. Like I'm up to date. I know everything that's pumping.
Yeah.
If I'd made some trades, I probably would have done well too. I just don't put anything in there. I'm sidelined. I just when it comes to that kind of stuff, I just like um, I like knowing that my fate is in my own hands. So I kind of like building for that reason. And then yeah, maybe I should have invested. I saw a unicorn fart dust so early. I missed that one.
Yeah. And what's the first crypto you ever bought? Uh,
Besides Bitcoin, I think XRP,
oh
honestly.
wow, okay.
Or I was also really interested in Brave Attention Token. Um, what else? But yeah, besides, I think I'd ETH early too.
hmm
I was like exposed to crypto pretty early, like 2014, 2013, maybe. I just sold all of it though at like 2015. Again, paper hand.
Yeah. I'm the opposite. I hold my profits all the way to the bottom again. Um, but yeah. Also, I want to hear your thoughts on AI agents. What do you think they're doing in the space right now? What's the future?
Man, I don't know, man. I actually don't get it, to be completely honest. I don't understand the difference between why you would like invest in an AI agent versus a hedge fund. Like to me, they're kind of similar, right? Like these AI agents are like basically AI hedge funds, and you maybe get like some of the gains behind it, but it just doesn't make sense to me. It's a narrative for sure, and it's a popular one.
It's attention, right? Like a lot of crypto is about attention, but I don't see the use case. And I think the industry is going more towards utility next year. Hopefully, gaming as well. Um, but yeah, also, um, where do you think the crypto market is going from this point of view?
Yeah, it's hard to tell, right? I've been wondering when the crypto markets will start caring about fundamentals because they really haven't yet.
Yeah,
At some point they will, right? It's going
they
to
have
shift there.
to. Yeah.
I mean, it's getting better and better, right? Like actually fundamentals do matter a lot more than they did 3 years ago. It's not only attention anymore. It's like attention plus like narrative plus like something there, right? Like, but then also you're kind of seeing it in the reverse of like some of the coins that have been like coming back in the last like 6 months have been coins that are like kind of dead, but kind of dead when it comes to building. But like stuff that people already knew before, right? Like, you know, not to like, I'm not going to talk about any gaming token, but XRP is a good example in that regard then, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Where like nobody in the space like thinks that the tech and what they're building is like better than anything else that's out there right now. But like that
The
also isn't what,
narrative. Yeah.
yeah.
And how much do you think about the pixel price of the pixel token? Is that something that's regularly in your mind, or is it something you're trying to purposely blend out?
Here's how I view all of this stuff. What I'll say is I know what the price is all the time. But my decision making and what my focus is to build the best products possible that use the pixel token. So, you know, I care about utility, I care about product, and I'm not ever thinking about like how do I change the price of the token that like you know what I'm talking about and what I'm trying to say. It's basically like I believe in fundamentals.
Yeah.
I believe in making good things. I believe in taking the hard path and doing things the right way. And to me, doing things the right way is building products that use tokens in interesting ways, building out games that people like, and figuring out the fundamentals of play there.
I love to hear that. But if you weren't in crypto, is there anything else that you could think of what you would be doing right now?
Oh yeah, I'd be like on a sailboat or farming, or I wouldn't be doing tech at all.
Okay,
Um,
so doing stuff in the real world, not so much in the web space. And yeah, to close things out, can we get some leaks or some alpha for what's coming next in Pixels? Also, maybe if you want to talk a bit about the goals for 25 for next year.
yeah, alpha is that chapter 2.5 when these updates come out, they're gonna change everything. It's gonna be, it might feel as different as chapter 2 did. Um, so yeah, all the game meta is gonna shift. We have to do it, right?
Yeah.
The game can't stay as is. I think people are too frustrated with how it is right now, so they understand there's going to be some change that's needed. Some people also might be frustrated. No one likes change, but
Yeah.
you guys are all in your routines now. But also, anytime we make a big change is when like the people that figure it out quickest have the most earning potential. So that's always kind of interesting and fun. And then, yeah, again, 2025. Still, we're thinking about ecosystem expansion, chapter 3, making the game better, making the onboarding better, improving core metrics, improving play to earn fundamentals.
When chapter 3?
I mean, yeah, we're basically in the design phase of that now. So realistically, it's probably like a 3-month timeline from when we like finally
And
finish out the design phase.
and
If I
there might be PvP involved. I think it's something, or
maybe we're debating what we do about that right now. What's interesting is like there could be a better integration of pixel dungeons that do some cool stuff, or it could be like figuring out how to make pixel dungeons have like a few more interesting mechanics that integrate into like other things. Maybe it's building upgrades for pixel dungeons. So yeah, there's some possibilities with that kind of stuff.
okay. And what would you say would Pixels look like in 5 years from now?
Yeah, I think Pixels has at least 2 first-party titles then. So maybe it's like Pixels 2 or something like that. I want 10 million daily active users across the ecosystem, at least. And yeah, I hope we look a lot more like a Zynga or a Scopely. Basically, like we have the respect of the Web2 gaming giants, and we've solidly established ourselves as one of the largest gaming companies in the world. That's the idea.
And where do you see yourself in 10 years? What is Luke gonna do in 10 years when Pixel is already at that stage?
Yeah, it's funny. I never thought I was going to start another company, but I actually could see myself doing that. And if I start another company, there's a level of irony here. I think I would start like a farm tech business. Like I don't know, I'm really interested in like regenerative agriculture, and like quality food. And I feel like what I'll probably do when I'm done with Pixels is buy some land, like start my own farm, and then kind of figure out like if I
Basically
can,
playing Pixels in real life.
yeah, figure out if I can make any of like the farming stuff I'm doing like
Nice.
augmented by tech
Nice.
a lot.
Love to hear that. Yeah, so Luke, thank you so much for having this chat with me. I know your time is very valuable, and it was great to hear so many insights from you. I definitely respect your whole approach to building this and your authenticity. So yeah, thank you very much for this interview.
Yeah, no problem, man. No, appreciate you taking the time. Like, very happy to do this with you. And yeah, thanks for being such a good like member of the community, man. Really appreciate it.